I want to thank you so much again for joining Agent Advantage as we provide these educational opportunities for those struggling with post pandemic struggles like the isolation and food insecurities, as we help to make connections to our local resources and our communities. So,
I also do Swedish death cleaning. I am on the board of the Gateway End of Life Coalition that also offers monthly educational series for social workers and the community at large. I teach an end of life doula certificate course at Eden Seminary. The first round is happening right now. I co-teach that with Julie Straussman. And I love to give talks on what is death positive, what is a death doula, what is Swedish death cleaning, in hopes that we continue to educate ourselves and know more about these end of life topics so that we can better prepare ourselves and our families for what's next. So, thank you so much for having me today. So, let's start with just a nice definition of an end of life doula. So, an end of life doula is a non medical professional who supports emotional, logistical, and practical support for individuals and their families during the dying process. So, some people use different titles. You might hear death doula, end of life planner. You also may hear death midwife. And people who are working as an end of life doula or a death doula have probably taken some sort of course or certificate training to give them the knowledge of the broad range of what a death doula can do. And there's a lot of us out there. So if you're interested in meeting more end of life doulas, a quick Google search will give you some in your area that you can tap into and see if they may be able to help you with something that you're struggling with as far as end of life planning goes. So, what brought me to being a death doula is actually the death positive movement. So, after my mom died of early onset Alzheimer's about 10 years ago, I started to wonder why, culturally, why we do death and dying the way we do. And I started reading a lot, listening to podcasts, watching shows, all trying to figure out why we do what we do when someone's dying currently. And that brought me to the death positive movement. The death positive movement encourages everyone to speak openly about death in order to live life more fully. So the philosophy is that when you engage with, confront death, not hide it and put it as something that to not be talked about, when you talk about it, you're taking away that unrealistic fear and living life more fully in the moment. So, really being able to appreciate the moment you're in, because we never know when death will be upon us, but we all know that we are guaranteed death and taxes. And so we might as well plan and talk about it now so that we can be better prepared when it's there. So the death positive movement is what brought me to learn about what a death doula is. And I learned that from a death cafe, which is a meetup group. They happen all over and some virtually as well, where people come together with no agenda, no sales, and just talk about anything that's on their mind related to death and dying. So I'm located in St. Louis, and there is a healthy death cafe that's been around for about 10 years in St. Louis. But there is also several online and in different parts of the city and the country and internationally. So if you're interested in a death cafe or meeting up with other people who are just willing to talk about death and dying, that's a great way to do it. I find most people that come to the Death Cafe are there because they have something on their mind that they're curious about, and nobody is there to talk about it. So that is a good place to go if you just have some questions or want to meet with other people who don't mind having these conversations with you. The term death positive is credited to Caitlin Doughty, who is a mortician, a YouTube star. She's also an author. So that is another great resource I like to put out there for the death positive movement and all things death and dying. There is a website called The Order of the Good Death that outlines the death positive movement history and gives some more background information on that. But Caitlin Dowdy as well is a great resource to go check out her stuff in her YouTube channel, and she has a lot of great quick talks about answering questions from viewers related to death and dying. Okay, let's keep going. Let's dig in a little bit more. So, what exactly is the role of the end of life doula? So, emotional support. Holding space is a big one. We talk about that a lot in our training course, is listening, guiding. It can be doing some legacy projects or meaning making. When we talk about holding space and listening, it is about being an active listener and not interjecting with my own personal stories or advice, even. When I come into a home as an end of life doula or an end of life planner, I'm doing way more listening than explaining. Even when I'm helping with the next piece, which is the practical support, the planning and organizing, it could be a planning and organizing advanced healthcare directives. It could be planning and organizing a vigil, a celebration of life, whatever that is. I am mostly asking their opinion, not giving my opinion. So I'm holding space to understand what's important to them in these final chapters, and I'm helping organize those wishes, maybe educating them on those on options they have, which is the next piece, educational support. So helping families understand the dying process, giving them resources, helping them understand what to expect. So a lot of what I do is educate on funeral arrangement choices. There's a lot of options out there, and not a lot of people are seeking out those options prior to a death event. So part of what I do is encourage people to know their options before they need any of these services. So knowing that there's multiple types of cremation now, that's not necessarily offered in all states, but in a lot of states, there's different things you can do with cremains, or ashes as people call it, but cremains is the technical word. There's things you can do with cremains afterwards to honor your loved one if you so wish. You can have a green burial, you can have a natural burial, you can be buried at sea. So there's lots of options out there, and people don't, because we don't talk about it culturally or we don't talk about it as a group, we end up limiting our options when the time comes because we aren't quite sure what to do or even to ask about what we can do. So a lot of the role of the end of life doula is educating, providing resources, giving people the resources of social groups that they can go be a part of, like a senior center. So just because we're talking about what to do up until death, that doesn't mean you stop living. You keep living, you keep educating yourself, you keep exploring until that death event occurs. And so having resources like estate attorneys that I work with that I feel I can trust, and letting people know who those people are that I trust, having hospice organizations that I can refer them to, having estate sales, so there's a lot of networking and resource giving because I love to gather the information, but I am not the person that can do all the things. And an end of life doula should be really clear on that, of what they're able to do for you and what they can recommend you go somewhere else to do. And then lastly, the role of an end of life doula could be spiritual support. So honoring rituals, creating a ceremony if a family isn't spiritual and doesn't have something that they know they want to do when a death event occurs, I can help create a ceremony for them. And always about respecting beliefs and respecting people's choices. So I want to help the people who have hired me to do their end of life planning. I want to help them honor themselves, be true and authentic to themselves, and whatever that is as they age into end of life and after. So part of what I can do as a doula is really encourage the family to honor those wishes after the person has died, whatever those may be. So emotional support, practical support, educational support, spiritual support, all of those intertwine into each other. But overall, my goal is to learn what the client's wishes are and to help advocate for them to keep those wishes intact and whole, and whatever they see the end being, and trying to help them make that happen. I also have to be really honest with clients if they have an end of life wish that I don't know that we would be able to honor or may be hard to honor. And so part of having those tough talks with clients and their families about how we could possibly make something happen, and some things that wouldn't be able to happen at the end of life. Okay. So then the scope. So as I said earlier, the role of a doula is non-medical. So this is a service that's great in addition to other support, but does not replace a lot of things that are also great resources. Like I said, part of what I enjoy doing is getting people in touch with the experts when I know I am not the expert, but I've had a good working relationship with different experts in the field. So I can be a companion, I can be an advocate, I can be a guide, but I'm working alongside other really instrumental pieces of the puzzle at end of life. Hospice is something that I find to be a wonderful resource, and some people have had great experiences with hospice, and unfortunately, some people have had negative encounters with hospice as well. But overall, I believe that most people do not utilize hospice soon enough to get the full benefit of what hospice can provide. So if a client reaches out to me who is terminal and wants to talk about end of life wishes, I may ask them, have you been working with hospice yet? And whether it's yes or no, there's no right or wrong answer, but I may ask why, or like, when is it time to include them? Because hospice will be able to provide that medical piece support that I cannot provide. I cannot recommend medicine changes. I cannot administer medicine. I am there to support and companion, but I am not the medical piece of it. So we'd always want to have that medical care team involved, whether that's hospice or palliative care or both. Um, and and I have found that it has been easy to work alongside hospice because I am not trying to take over their role. I'm there when they can't be there. So hospice is usually not a 24/7 service that is provided. And a lot of people don't realize that then when they go on hospice, that may mean hospice in the home, which it's great to be able to keep somebody in their home setting and comfortable in their home setting. But hospice won't be there all the time. So they will come and go and come more frequently as more attention is needed, but they really rely on the family and then any other support services to fill in the gaps where that family may need help. Same with funeral planning. I am not a funeral director. I do not sell funeral insurance pre-plans or anything like that. What I can do is educate people on what their choices may be. And if one of those stands out to them, then tell them, oh, well, I know this company does that, or these 3 places do that sort of service. You should check them out. I also just educate people that they can have a greener option if they prefer. They don't have to be embalmed unless there's certain requirements from a funeral home. But if you don't like those requirements or you don't prefer that, go check somewhere else. So you can go shop around for funeral arrangements and plans. You don't have to do everything that has always been done in your family if that doesn't feel true to you and your authenticity. So, um, I work alongside funeral directors. I may recommend funeral homes that I know honor the wishes in a certain way or have greener options or have more creative options. But I am not a funeral director and I cannot handle all of the aspects of funeral planning. So I can help guide. So I kind of said that as well. What doulas do not do is replace hospice, provide medical care, or legal advice. So that's a big one too. So as a doula, I can help people complete or think through their healthcare directive, which I think everybody 18 and older should have an advanced healthcare directive that they've thought through and they've communicated to their loved ones. So I can help you think through that and like clarify some questions, but I would not give you legal advice on how to set up your estate or how many different POAs you should have or anything like that. So, legal advice is not in my wheelhouse. Helping you get access to an advanced healthcare directive and having that completed, that's something I can help with. But I don't provide legal advice on estates or estate planning. Okay. So, what are the benefits of having an end of life doula or a death doula? The biggest one in my mind is reducing the fear and anxiety. So, when I get called in to work with a family, a lot of it is just letting them know that the choices that they have to make and talking through the fears and anxieties of those choices, that they don't know what the right answer is, they don't know what their options are, so it creates a lot of anxiety. So talking to a death doula, attending a death cafe, hosting a death over dinner, all of these conversations reduce fear and anxiety related to end of life. Another benefit, more meaningful, peaceful end of life experiences. So if you reduce that fear and anxiety of the unknown or what's going to happen after, you hopefully are able to feel more at peace in those final moments in order to have what we call a good death. What does a good death mean to you? Does that mean um, more pain medication so that you have zero discomfort? Does that mean uh, finishing an unfinished piece of business? Maybe there's a project that you wanted to do that never got to. Maybe you need to pass that project on to somebody, or maybe you just need to consider it done as is and let go of that guilt and shame of not finishing something that you really wanted to finish. So having a good death and thinking through, if I die today, what is going to make me feel more at peace? What can I let go of? What can I do right now to give me peace and have a meaningful exit? That is a big benefit. And just talking about it, you might not solve all the problems in your head, but it will hopefully give you some more peace in moving forward. It can be a big benefit for supporting caregivers. So, caregiving is a very hard job. And when somebody is on hospice and hospice is not there 24/7, but the person maybe is at the point where they need 24/7 support, then an end of life doula can be there to help the caregivers, give them a chance to step away, recharge, take care of themselves, because taking care of someone else is such a hard job. And I'm sure a lot of people have done that and know that from firsthand experience, that it is a very hard job. Another benefit is increased agency and choices at end of life. And so again, just knowing what you want, reflecting on what you want, and then being able to communicate that to your team, your support system for the end of life, really helps in creating what you consider a good death, a good end of life transition. And a death doula can help get you through those conversations and through those choices. So, why this work matters. Breaking the taboo around death. So many people who come to Death Cafe or come to some of the events that we put on, we hear very often, like, I'm here because no one wants to talk to me about this, like something they read in the paper, something they saw on TV, or nobody wants to talk to me about my person that has died. And I just want to have a space where I can say this person's name and people aren't going to be scared to talk or turn away or be blank faced because I'm talking about this person that has died that I care about. So having death doulas in the world help us break the taboo around death. Believe me when I say, oh, I'm a death doula to in my introduction to people in general. What do you do for a living? Oh, I'm a death doula, or I'm an end of life planner. I get a lot of interested eyes right away of what does that mean? And most people can assume, or most people understand the transition from a birth doula to a death doula. So a birth doula is helping advocate for the mother as she brings life into the world and keeping her true to herself and making sure she feels supported and her choices are being heard. The death doula is just on the other end. So that death doula is helping the person labor out of this world and keep true to themselves and make sure their choices are still heard, even if they can't say it themselves anymore. And having those conversations with them so that we know what the answers are and we reduce the fear and anxiety of the family that's then trying to wonder, well, what did this person want? Why don't we know if they want more medication or less medication, or if they want to be at home, or if they want to be in a hospital? Like, why don't we know what this person wants? Breaking the taboo around death, talking to people, educating people. That's why it matters that we do this. We're creating space for dignity, meaning, and connection at the end of life. So, I can speak from personal experience that it was an honor to be able to sit with my mother in her final moments and give her the reassurance of, you've done what you needed to do, you've lived a good life, you've raised some great kids, if I do say so myself, and you can let go now and figure out what's next. Whatever's next, you get to find out the great mystery. So it is an honor to be able to do that, and I encourage families, if they have the opportunity, to sit with someone who wants to have company with them in those final moments, that you take that opportunity, because it is a special part of life that should not be hidden away, and we should all be connecting with each other all the way to those final moments. Because my last point, death is a natural part of life. So we know that. I think we all know that really inherently and understand that. And yet, for the most part, we try to tuck it away and pretend like it doesn't happen. And when it does happen, we have very big emotions, which is completely normal for everybody to have. And hopefully, if we're able to talk through those emotions and express and maybe think more reflectively about what that means to us, then that anxiety, fear goes away for the next time. It's when we have a death occur, it happens, and then we try to get over it. We try to just move on, get back to living. That is okay for a moment, but overall, you still need to process what that means when someone dies. And that's not morbid, that's being reflective, and a healthy part of living a good life is knowing that we are not guaranteed any more moments than this moment. And we get to choose what we do with it and how we put ourselves out into the world. So it is a natural part of life. I hope you'll all keep engaging with that. So then I just have a nice little thank you here. So that is my name again, Lauren Ponder. My website is With Love Events. I work one-on-one with clients. We I usually get hired for Swedish death cleaning before a terminal diagnosis ever occurs. Just people are ready to move on and part with some of their stuff. I get hired by terminal clients who want to talk about end of life and how to talk to their families about end of life. Sometimes I get hired by the family after the fact to help create a celebration of life that feels more authentic to the person. I also like to go around to businesses and talk about end of life planning and why it's important for all of us to be thinking about some end of life planning and doing some wishes, expressing our wishes to each other. So also have some last call events. I will go ahead and plug. We have a end of life festival coming up October 4th here in St. Louis. So if you are in St. Louis, it is a free event to attend, and there's going to be panel discussions and mini discussions all related to death and dying end of life topics. We also have a lot of interactive pieces throughout the festival, some letter writing, a telephone of the wind, um, lots of stuff. So if you guys are in the St. Louis area, October 4th, you can check out the website. It's at In Seminary. And feel free to reach out to me if you guys have more questions after today that pop into your mind about what an end of life doula does.
Great. Thank
Did
you
I
again,
cover it?
Lauren.
Okay.
Yes, you did. I want to thank you so much again for joining Agent Advantage as we provide these educational opportunities for those struggling with post pandemic struggles like the isolation and food insecurities, as we help to make connections to our local resources and our communities. So, again, thank you so much, Lauren. And I thank you too for putting up your information. As you can see, there's her information. At any time, if you do lose it, forget it, not sure, of course, always contact us here at Aging Advantage so that we can get you the correct information to get in contact with her. I'm so grateful for your presentation today because I think this is something you covered also in your presentation, but I agree that this is something that a lot of people wish to taboo it. That's just like we don't talk about it because you're gonna make us die sooner, quicker, but that's not so. I agree with you. It does help the process to
Mhm.
become a lot less stressful, could I say? Maybe sometimes,
Yeah,
every situation, of course, is different, but
right.
I too had to learn not to be afraid, because yeah, I was like the biggest fear of my life of
Mhm.
just what is it? How, just like, I don't know what type of questions to ask. And it was so the first time I had to experience it with a hospice patient, it helped me to understand and I got more familiar, more comfortable, I would say, with it. And yeah, and so I'm hoping um everybody that's listening have gotten something out of this for either themselves or something they can do to help a loved one or friend get through the difficult times whenever they appear, because we all have to some kind of way go through this. If we haven't already been through it at one point in our life, we probably
Yes.
will before we leave.
Yes, we'll do it over and over again, and it doesn't make it less sad. I still
Right.
get sad. It's still I still have grief, but being able to just talk about it more freely lessens that when the big moments occur. The big moments are going
Yes.
to occur. And if we
Yes.
have more conversations about it, then hopefully the shock of that maybe can lessen.
There
The
you go.
grief isn't
Absolutely.
as overwhelming as it can be.
Yes.
Mhm.
And let's see here. We may have a question. Somebody says thank you, and then another person says, could you explain the Swedish death cleaning? I have
Yeah,
heard the term, but not sure what it is.
yeah, yeah. And we should schedule another one. I have a whole presentation on that too.
Really? Okay,
Uh,
okay. Well, we can
But
do that.
a short answer is a Swedish death cleaning is hopefully when a person is alive and is ready to minimize their life a little bit. And so that makes it different from like an estate sale because the act is the person is finding the item and saying, this has meaning to me because of this story. And it obviously you hope that family is around to hear that story and then gifts it to the person they want to have it, right?
Mm.
So this coffee mug is important to me because me and my husband always try to go on red cup day for Starbucks. And so I want now you to have it so you can, be greener and use the Starbucks cup instead of a paper cup, whatever it may be. So again, it can be a small story or a big story, but it's helping minimize the stuff in your life by gifting those things to people in a meaningful way and not just being like, this stack of magazines is yours, take it.
Get rid of it. Do what you want to do. Okay.
Right,
Well, that's
right.
great though. Yes. And I think we would love to hear more about that
Yeah,
too, go into more detail. So we will have to do that, Lauren. Set something
yeah,
up when you're available to come back and share with us because
for
that
sure.
sounds very interesting. Again,
Yeah.
we want to thank you so much. Let me see if we have any more questions. It does not look like we have any more questions. And so we won't prolong your time because most definitely we want you to come back. And we thoroughly enjoyed you. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for not being afraid to discuss and being very open with us and allowing questions, to be asked as well. So, again, thank you so much. And you have a great day. Thanks, everybody, for coming on.